So I promise you I changed my clothes. I'm just recording this video after my long legs video because I found the time. Thank God. But today I wanted to talk about a film called Waltz with Bashir. And this was a film that was recommended to me by one of my good friends, LR. I just feel like he is a very bad influence when we have our Discord chats because we'll just keep talking about films and films and films. And then we'll end up throwing out recommendations, and then he'll throw recommendations to me. And I'm just like, I've not seen that. I'm going to buy it. And that's what I did with Waltz with Bashir. But this was a very anticipated film for me to watch because before I went to bed that night after hearing about the film, I saw some of the animations for it and I was just blown away. There's one specific animation that really did just tickle my peach. And it's sort of like under this yellow hue in this city, and there's just a bunch of people floating on the water. And it's so beautiful. But Waltz with Bashir is directed by Ari Folman, and it follows this character who, it's during the Lebanon War, I believe in 1982, and essentially he is having trouble with memory loss. So it's sort of set up, it is set up like a documentary with interviews, but it's animated, and he's interviewing these people that were a part of his life previously, years before, so that way he can sort of reconnect with his past thoughts and memories to sort of, get a handle on life, basically. It's interesting because it sets up for this interesting mystery where you just wonder, why is he like this? And I don't want to say anything else more, although I am going to, at the very end, spoil the ending, just at the very end, so you don't have to click away. I'll let you know, trust me. But I have an idea of at least how I interpret it. But he's doing these interviews, and during these interviews, we get to see specific flashbacks of these pivotal moments of his life. And it's very heartbreaking at times. It's got some pretty exciting moments. There's one specific moment where they're sort of on this freeway, and it's very atmospheric. And there's basically enemy fire coming, and this guy comes out with this gun. And I don't want to spoil what comes after that, but it was so well executed. And I am a fan of animated films. Like, I love Japanese animated films. I mean, Pixar. I mean, like, and today I watched Such a Beautiful Day, I think that's what it's called. So I do like animated films. It's just there are people that like animated films more than I do. But I tend to gravitate towards animated films that are, I guess you could sort of say, darker in nature. I don't know. I need help. Please help me. And this film has some pretty rough moments. It is not scared to show you things. And that's what I appreciate it, because it sort of lends itself to this sort of uncanny element where you see these things and you're just like, ooh, these are messed up. But just because it's an animated form, it's even more messed up. And I know that sounds sort of strange and bizarre to say, but the way that this film is presented, it's almost like sort of a dream. And you feel like you're in this character's shoe, where whenever he's interviewing these people, you want to know his backstory, as painful as it might be. And you even get to the point to where you question, okay, well, your life was rough, and you're figuring out all this information, all this depressing stuff, but yet you want to know more. And it's so interesting, and it really does help you get in the lead character's shoes. Another thing about this film is I think it proves that a 90-minute film, it's a little less than 90 minutes if you take away credits, where this film is epic. It's 90 minutes long, but it is an epic film. Like, it is just one of those films where I do believe, depending on how much content that you shove into a film, you can turn like an 80 or 90-minute film into an epic film. Like, this film, it felt longer, but in the best way possible. Like, I was just completely engaged. It's probably, I don't know if it's my favorite animated film of all time, but it might be pretty close because I really enjoyed it. And if you've seen my Letterboxd little like thing that I had to say about it, I just can't do another ending like that before I go to bed. Another thing is the animations. The animations are actually extremely easy to follow. There are some films that are animated where I see them and I'm just like, I'm having a hard time sort of getting invested, or I'm having a hard time, like, my attention, well, I have a good attention span, but it's just, sometimes I'll watch an animated film and it's just the art style sort of throws me off to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, well, I have to endure another like hour and a half of this. But the very opening of the film, whenever you see the dogs running down the street, I was just kind of hooked. Like, I saw it and I was just like, this is very visually pleasing to the eyes, and I can tell that I know I'm not going to have a fun experience with this film, but I know that I'm going to have a pleasant experience, at least from a viewing perspective. So that's always nice. And I do believe it is a must watch. It is one of those films where I don't know if I would classify it as like one of the most disturbing films, unless you get to like sort of towards the end. Then it gets kind of really, really rough. But it is one of those films where it's very thought-provoking and it makes you think, and you just can't help but whenever you get done with the film, sort of appreciate the situation that you may be in, no matter how bad it is, depending on what it is. If your situation is worse than this film at points, then I am sorry. Like, that is, it must be rough. But it really does sort of this. It's just one of those films where it gives you a greater appreciation of life, and it sort of gives you a greater appreciation of cinema as a whole, because I feel like this is one of those films where it's sort of risky, where you're doing this animated, very brutal, sort of, I guess you could almost say personal film, where you not only have to trust yourself to be involved, but you also have to trust the audience as well. And when I say trust yourself, I think it could be very common for somebody to make a film like this, especially with, you know, how its presentation is, where it's an animated film, and you can sort of lose yourself in maybe not positive ways, as opposed to if something like this was more live action, or you were to just sort of tell a more basic documentary. But this film, I think, has stood the test of time. I mean, I think it came out in like 2006, 2008, something like that. I hope I'm right about that. And I just, watching it today, I felt like it was something that came out last year or this year. It's really good. It even got nominated, I think, for an Academy Award. So, yep, there's that. And if you guys want to check out my filmography, definitely do so. You can definitely check it out. Links down in the description below. You can also leave a review, a rating on Letterboxd or IMDb. It helps me out a lot. It'd mean the world to me if you checked it out. Also, if you're a filmmaker and you want to reach out, definitely reach out. But before you go, this is spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers for this film, click away now. But I am going to get into it just for a second. So if you want to stay, stay. But the way that I interpreted this film, I had to get my plug over with. I hate doing that, especially for this type of film, but I just needed to get out of the way so I could talk about this. But the ending of the film is very powerful, because you're watching this animated film this whole entire time, and there's this it's probably one of the greatest cuts I've ever seen in like anything, where our lead character is putting his hands up and he's trying to block these people coming out of this bridge, or through this bridge, and whenever it shows the perspective of what he's seeing, it switches to real footage from that time of people crying and, you know, bodies, and it's just rough. It just, you see everything, and it does not hold back. And the final shot is probably one of the most haunting things I've ever seen. It's very sad. It's very rough. Very crazy to even attempt that. Yeah, it's just nothing short of, dare I say, magnificent, just because of what it's able to show and the emotions that it's able to portray. But at the same time, it's just really rough. And how I interpreted this film, and as soon as the credits rolled, I knew exactly what was going on. At least in my mind, I knew exactly what this lead character was going through, and I knew exactly why this story was happening, with the lead character sort of trying to figure out his memories and sort of reconnect with the world or the past that sort of left him behind, and the reason why that he didn't remember those memories, and the reason why he was trying to figure this stuff out is because he wanted to forget the whole time, because it's that rough. And whenever I put that together, had an interesting time going to bed, because that's some pretty heavy stuff. But if you did stay throughout this whole video, after me talking about the ending, the film is still worth watching. You should definitely check it out. It is a rough watch, but it's also entertaining at times. I don't know why I'm trying to convince you to watch this, because if you've stayed this long, you probably have. But yeah, anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Let me know what you thought of Waltz with Bashir down in the comments below.